They're coming for you, Janice.
Hello, and welcome to All Alternate Venues for Jazz. My name is Gary Armstrong. I've been here before as a friend of Gail. Gail and I have been friends for around 35 years. And today I have the honor of moderating a conversation between Grammy nominated, Grammy winning, Grammy hoarders of Grammys, iconic vocal group, the Manhattan Transfer, as they celebrate their 50th anniversary and their 50th anniversary tour, and their most recently Grammy nominated album 50. So we have a lot of questions we want to ask them, and just a bit of background about the tone we're going to take is as part of the 50th anniversary celebration, we did a lot of sort of hashing of old articles and old interviews, and we were trying to talk about some interesting things. So a lot of the questions we're going to be focusing on are things that really haven't been asked yet. After 50 years, they've done a ton of media, had a lot of interviews, but there's still things that people may not know about them. So that's really the focus I'm going to take. And I mean, the thing is, maybe the questions were asked, but I never read them. So in 2012, your musical godfather, John Hendricks, told NPR, "I think they're the greatest vocal ensemble that ever was, ever has been, or ever will be," which I think is lovely and true. You've performed for at least 3 presidents, been in every 8 major continent, dozens of countries, and your longevity runs because of your consistent musicality and also your ease with the creative evolution. So the creative evolution is what I want to focus on. I found a Reuters article from 2009, and founder Tim Hauser was interviewed, and he said, quote, "We can't agree on anything. Creative differences, we thrive on creative differences. It takes us forever to agree, but there are certain guidelines that have to transcend personal feelings. I think underneath all of that, we genuinely like each other, and we all understand that what we do collectively is greater than what we do individually." So my question is that still true? Does a creative tension make you stronger? What's more important, creative similarities or creative differences? Janice.
What a great question. I think they both are valid and both exist. Creative differences, sometimes the synergy of that leads to something great.
Yeah.
And that's been mostly our process. But sometimes you sort of have to know when to dig in and when to let go, I think. It's a combination of both things, I think.
So Trist, these 3 were doing the creative differences, creative similarities for 40 years before you came onto the scene. How did you, as a new member of this group, how did you respond when they were embracing creative differences towards creative similarities?
Well, having been in musical ensembles before, in a weird way, that was comfortable. Oddly, even though it was with new players, new parts of the puzzle. But I've been in those puzzles before where, okay, sometimes it doesn't all just go super smoothly, and there's disagreements, and then you get done with it. It's like, oh wow, that really brought us to a creative place that we might not have reached. So in a way, it was new and odd and uncomfortable, and yet comfortable because of that, because I had experienced that before.
And Cheryl, I know you sort of focus a lot on finding common ground, and you want to move forward and find creative similarities. How do you personally put your voice to make sure your voice is heard with both the creative similarities and the creative differences? And can you give examples of that?
Well, to go back for a second, what Janice said is so true. The differences I find are the places where I learn, and I give I give the focus or the trust to another member. If I don't believe in the song, I'll listen and trust and go with it. I think we've all done that in the past. We're very diplomatic, but we'll get on our soapbox if we really we will. And like if Alan or Janice or Trist or Tim, again, really believe in something. I have an example, but it's very embarrassing. Really believe in something, I go with it. For example, Corner Pocket. I didn't see it. I didn't hear it, and maybe because of my knowledge wasn't really dug in yet, in terms of vocalese, in terms of, four part, in terms of melody. I didn't hear it lyrically at first. I don't even know if you guys know that.
No.
I know. That
Sure.
was my little.
We had other issues with Corner Pocket.
Yeah.
Well,
and
there were a
so-
lot of
well,
issues with Corner
yeah, that
Pocket.
too.
Yes.
But listening to the the instrumental, I was like, So there are times when I don't hear something or somebody else doesn't, but we trust. We have to. That's the excitement of this group, I think.
So have you guys ever had something where you're like, I don't get it, I don't hear the melody, I don't do this, and then it comes out of the studio and you're like, I get it now? Or does the audience have a different response that you're like, oh, now I see what Janice was thinking? I get what they were trying to do with Cuckoo You or something like that?
It was unanimous with Cuckoo You.
Cuckoo You. We
No,
all
it wasn't.
love.
No,
No, who
I
didn't
didn't.
like it?
I didn't get it. And when I joined the group, I thought, what have I done?
Yeah, we kind of hit you with some weird shit
Yeah.
at
I
first.
went along with
didn't
it.
we?
It was what a wild ride. Extensions was.
Putting
So,
my
and-
2 cents in here, I mean, based on what Tim said, is absolutely true. And in a way, because of the way the dynamics of the group are, that's why we do what we do. That's why we sound what we do, and the eclecticism that we have exists because we allow that freedom. Whenever we have a project or something, we do our lists. Boom, 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 boom. Here are all the songs, 50 songs or whatever they are. And we vote, and then we get sometimes we get unanimous vote. And sometimes we get 3-1, then we get 2-2, and that's when the big bucks start coming out of the pocket to to pay off my partners if they don't. What, I said, listen, come on. But sometimes it is a matter of trust. It really is. And I think that's what makes us special, because we work that way.
I think it even extended, there's those early examples, but even on the Junction album, the first one I was a part of, we're in the studio, we're going through the lists with our wonderful producer, Mervyn Warren, and the gals bring up an arrangement that Alan did of Tequila. And Mervyn Warren and I kind of shared a look at each other like, you mean like tequila?
The
Like
champ.
both of us absolutely just sight unseen, unheard, whatever, just like, oh no, that's not going to work. And then-
So did I, by the way.
Right, and that's what helped.
I
That's
went.
what helped me the most was that Alan, who was the arranger, was also doubtful.
But
Oddly enough,
Cheryl
that's the
Sampson
thing that
did.
made me interested, because both of the ladies are like, no, we really have to do it. And I was like, Mervyn and I were just like, okay. And then as we were mixing the album, I remember Mervyn and I sharing a glance as we were mixing it going, I think this is one of my favorite tracks. Remember when we doubted this one? So it's.
And I always said, this is an encore, you guys. This is an encore. And it's just brilliant. People
It's
get up
so
and they
crazy.
go, yeah.
Because I wrote that 15 years before we recorded it, and
Yeah.
I think that we tried to sing it live, and it just wasn't clicking. I went, okay, oh well. I put it in the file. Never thought of it. So thank you, CB. That was cool. It's people
It
love
is
it.
one of my favorite things now too. We go wild.
Yeah, and you know what? I did not get Cantaloupe.
I know.
Right. We know that.
Cantaloupe.
Well,
We know that.
Okay, I understand. I hear the rap, and of course, there's Herbie and everything. But I said, how does it work? What are we going to do that's different? I don't get it. Boy, was I wrong.
well,
Yeah,
again, it's an
you.
example of somebody doesn't get it and you trusted that it would happen.
Right.
I trusted Merv. I
Yeah.
went, can you do this? He goes, oh yeah.
Oh, once I heard those chords, man, the melody that he came up with, I mean, killing. Cheryl and I also dug in our heels on Ugly Man. And I know, and you didn't like it, Alan.
No,
And Merv loved it.
Yeah.
So we had Merv in our corner. Trist, I don't remember how you skewed, but about Ugly Men.
I'm still not sure I know how. No, I'm kidding. I dig it. I dig it, actually.
Well, when you said, Janice, you brought it, and it's a Ricky Lee Jones tune, I went, I'm on board.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah.
So, well, it's interesting from that album, the two songs that have longevity are really Tequila and Cantaloupe.
That's right.
You know, they're the
Absolutely
two
right.
that
Yep.
that bring the crowds on in the show, and yet they're the ones that you had that sort of creative tension. So that sort of pushes them up into the transfer pantheon. So it is interesting. Trish, I want to go back to something you said when we were at the Grammy Museum last year, and you were talking about how you were a longtime fan of the group, and when they asked you to sub in for Tim when he was sick, and you said that you wanted the group to preserve their sound, but you wanted the ability to have your voice heard within that sound. And you said you wanted to have impact with the group. Can you talk about that a little more? Because I thought that was a really interesting concept of appreciating something that you're admiring, you're invited to, but how do you make sure that you're an individual within that?
Yeah, I think just naturally, again, because I was a fan and the sound and the vibe of what the group has always been, I loved it and treasured it so much. I wouldn't like if I didn't think I could sing in such a way that would make it fit, I would have almost just, as delightful as it would be, I was like, I don't think I would still like the group sound with me in it, but knowing that I could probably manage that and having the sound in my head, I knew I understood the concept of the sound and yet didn't want to, really being like an imitator, you know, uh, maybe for a show or a recording. Oh, we just need you to kind of sound like what we've always done. That's a particular skill set or a particular thing, but no, we want you to just be, you start to kind of be yourself. I think it would just be a drag to just try to do anything else. So yeah, I think the answer is right there in your question. I had an equal amount of needing to just be me and yet knowing that this group has this sound that's just etched into my ears that I didn't want to be different really, if I could help it.
So, and I remember one of your first shows as a sub, that I saw was Blue Note. And I was talking to Janice after the show and I said, that guy really kills on Trickle Trickle. He just goes to town on that and he brought it new life. So when you do that to a song like Trickle Trickle, which again, part of the Pantheon, or even, I found what you've done with Birdland, you've made it your own. How did the other members respond to that? Because you're changing something they've been doing for 35, 40 years.
Yeah, these two have been encouraging. And actually it's weird at this level, sometimes not even enough. I think there's almost a tacit approval, mostly in that if there is something that's like a little off kilter, that's when you'll just kind of pull aside, hey, this and this, or the impetus of this thing, I don't think you're capturing what it was supposed to be, et cetera, rather than every single thing. Oh, I love how you did that, and I love how you did that. No, and that other thing, I loved how you did that. It's kind of, if they're not saying anything to me, then I just assume we're good to go. Because there's, I figure they're all, listening like crazy. I know, having been in groups that had new members, I'm almost always paying attention to what that new member is doing and making sure things are up to snuff, etc. So, but always encouraging, and like if I would do something different, I would get no, that's great, that's you, and it totally fits the spirit of the song, etc. So they've been great about that. And if there's something that wasn't, hey, this is really what's behind this, it was super helpful to go, oh, I always thought of that as a fan as being this, and now you're telling me it's this. Got it. Now I can fit right in easier with that info.
I think naturally also, I mean, the timbre of your voice is different, so you're bringing in this whole new element into the group that was not there, was different than with Tim. You're being a true bass singer, there's that low part of your voice that I think just adds a different element that's really strong.
So I want to go back to something Cheryl said earlier, and that was again when she came into the group, And that time when Laurel had her accident, Laurel was the first soprano in the group. She had her accident, and then the group was on a hiatus for what, 7 to 9 months, something like that, where she was recuperating.
Yeah.
And what, Janice and Alan, what were you guys doing in that time period? Janice, weren't you? Maybe I'm wrong, but weren't you on tour with Eddie Jefferson and Richie Cole at that point, or was that
On
later?
tour is such a strong word. I was just
Yes.
traveling around in the van with
Okay, well.
Richie and Eddie, and I was taping every single set on cassette, and just observing and learning, listening to Eddie Jefferson sing every night and Richie play every night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was busy. But
Okay. And Alan, what were you doing in that time period of transition for the group?
Just hanging out.
Okay. So I want to get some data points lined up.
It was very I was just kind of hanging, we didn't know what we were going to do. I mean, we
Right.
thought we were going to stop, we kept waiting to find out the prognosis with Laurel. After 6-7 months, when we finally got together, and we had a conversation, I remember, with Ahmet Erdogan, because we went to him and said, what should we do? And Ahmet said, listen, you've worked so hard with the group, that you should find a replacement if that's what it comes down to. And yeah. And
it was nice to take a little breather at that point,
Yeah.
because it seemed like it was going to be a big turning point either way, So we just took a little breather.
So you had the auditions. Cheryl, you talked publicly many times about how you came in and you sang Candy, and you had a couple other songs lined up. What were the songs you said? Was it?
I did You Can Depend on Me. I did Candy and You Can Depend on Me.
Okay, and you said you had 4 brothers were in the back.
I had it in my back pocket. I mean, I knew the group and I knew their music. So I was ready to do something there. So
Okay, so Cheryl is hired, and then the next thing you guys do is you go in the studio on Richie Cole's album.
Yeah, that was first. But first, we went on the Gong Show.
Right. Okay.
yes, we did.
And we sang There Ain't Nobody Here But Us Chickens, was it?
Beat Me Daddy.
Beat Me Daddy to the
Daddy
bar.
ate to the bar,
That's it.
Chickens.
and we all had paper bags over our head. No, some had
No,
masks.
we wore masks.
We wore crazy masks.
Yes.
Cheryl wore
I had a
gorilla-
wig as well.
Yeah. Okay, so you went on the Gong Show, and then you did Richie Cole's album, and you did 3 songs on there with Eddie Jefferson and Tom Waits too. So that's sort of the grooviest guys ever on that album.
Totally.
And then you do Birdland. At what point did you find Birdland, Janice, and say, this is what we're going to do? Because you guys just sort of finished this career of, sort of Euro music, and you were doing, as I said, traditional Candy and 4 Brothers and all these things. All of a sudden you're saying, I want to take the synthesizer solo and I'm going to write it for 4-part harmony. Was that, at what point in that time period did you say Birdland?
Should I be very honest?
Yeah.
I was tripping. And I was listening to Heavy Weather. And Birdland came on. It's like, oh my God, this is singable. This is a sing-along. This is a pop record of the future, and we should do it. It's perfectly laid out. It just needs lyrics, and then I'll write a vocal arrangement.
Okay, so you went on into your K-hole. You were listening to Birdland, and was that while you in your time period off from the group in that 7-month period? So was Cheryl on board at that point?
I don't think she was actually.
Okay.
No, I don't think she was.
Okay.
No, there were delays.
You guys played it for me and said,
Yeah.
what do you think of this to sing? And I went, so I was excited.
Yeah, there were delays with it because we approached Eddie
Yes.
to write the lyrics.
And
And
then one morning I got a phone call from Richie Cole crying that he was murdered. And after a respectable amount of time, we inquired from his widow whether there was anything that had been written, and there wasn't.
And so then you went to John Hendricks.
Yeah.
And so why John Hendricks after Eddie Jefferson? I know they're both masters of vocalese, but what made you think that John would approach it from the same style that Eddie would approach it?
Well, we didn't want him to do it like Eddie would do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was sort of like an obvious choice. I mean, we had been doing John Hendricks tunes since the very beginning, inception of the group. We did I Want You to Be My Baby. We did Doodlin'. Four Brothers was his lyric. And it was a natural choice.
Yeah, I think we went with Eddie first because we were hanging with Eddie.
Yes.
And he was also a master. So I think that's why that happened.
So, and again, just lining these up, you had a shift of members. You brought Cheryl in, and you were doing Birdland. You're doing trippy stuff. You're going to embrace electronic music. Cheryl, what were your thoughts? Because you auditioned with Candy, right? And then all of a sudden they're saying, hey, put on a gorilla mask. We're going on the Gong Show and we're going to sing electronic music. And we're going to do this weird ass version of Cuckoo You. And was that shift out? And this is really for Alan and Janice too. Was that shift intentional? Do you think you would have made that shift if you hadn't changed Sopranos? Or do you think it was just, how did that come about?
It was
Alan.
a question to me.
Okay.
No, it was because of the shift. We had gotten to a point where, when we were touring, we were basically doing, the first 3 albums. And we were listening to other stuff. We were already expanding in terms of ideas and things like that, And I think if Laurel didn't have the accident, if we would have continued, I don't think that we would have made extensions. I really don't. I don't think that we would have had it was kind of like, well, let's just do it. Let's just change. Let's go for it, And a big part of that was changing producers, really wanting to get a whole new perspective, a new point of view, and we went with Jay Graydon, as you know, and that really made the difference. I mean, it was a radical change in so many different ways. The audience in Europe, as much as they loved us, when we had extensions, when it came out and we changed our whole look, we were into the Jean-Paul Gaultier, futuristic look and everything else. Our fans over there were heartbroken. They were heartbroken because they wanted us to stay exactly the way they remembered us.
Yeah, especially in the UK.
Yeah.
They wanted Chansons d'Amour. They wanted Walk in Love. They wanted On a Little Street in Singapore. They wanted the gowns. They wanted the tuxes,
Yeah.
And
most likely we would have probably stayed that way or done something similar to it. I don't know. But because of Cheryl joining the group, it was like this whole new spring of energy. She was our muse.
She was definitely a catalyst for change, along with Jay.
I just followed the group. I just got on the train and said, "Okay, Cuckoo You, okay, wow. Okay."
Look in the mirror.
How you did it. It's so amazing because there was so much thrown at you. Not only did you have to learn the old material, but we were making a new album and you had to do that as well. I was so impressed. So impressed.
And Trist, as a fan, what did you think when the group all of a sudden went to this completely new sound? Did that ever throw you and make you question, like, what the hell are they doing?
Well, since I'm incredibly young, the thing is, that's my favorite joke. However, there's some truth in that. Like, there's no changing sound for me because I grew up in Cheyenne, Wyoming, before there was an internet. So the first sound I ever heard was Boy from New York City. So that's even after all of the stuff you're talking about. So for me, that question just doesn't, it's just kind of NA. Like, my experience is, oh, here's this group, here's this song, and then listening to all the albums and just going, oh, they've done all kinds of different stuff. This is really interesting. I like them. So.
Yeah. As part of the conversations we were having about the 50th, we sort of really drilled down into two aspects for the transfer. And one was the legacy of the group. And I did some digging, which you guys know I'm always doing digging. And the collective works of the transfer have been nominated for the Grammys against 12 Grammy categories, which I find fascinating. One that really surprised me was a children's album. Talk to me about Tubby the Tuba. No one talks about that album yet. It got nominated for a Grammy. How did that come about?
Well,
It was
Janice was like 8 months pregnant, and it didn't come to us, and we went, this is a perfect moment where she could sit on a stool.
Yeah.
She couldn't move too much. If you recall.
I had to lie down between takes.
Yeah. Al, how did that come to us? How was
it came from Summit Records.
Summit, yeah.
Approached us about doing it. I guess they had the rights to it with the writer of Tubby the Tuba. And Danny Kaye had done a recording of Tubby the Tuba, okay? But he didn't do the complete Tubby the Tuba. He only did, I think, one or two of the stories. But they wanted us to do the entire Tubby the Tuba. And it was, I think, intriguing.
It was mad fun.
Never
oh
did
my God.
anything like that, So that's kind of how it came about.
Okay. And back to the Grammys, as I said, you guys have, your collective work has 12 Grammys. The group's work has 10 Grammys, and individual members each have 1 Grammy. Cheryl has a Grammy and Janice has a Grammy. What's interesting to me is that your Grammys aren't for singing, though. Each of you both have a Grammy for arranging, not for singing. What's your legacy going to be? Is it going to be as a singer, somebody who's pushed harmony, somebody who's pushed arranging?
I don't know.
Okay.
Who knows? I don't care.
It's probably a combination.
Yeah.
Because
Total.
I mean, a lot of what we do comes from our arrangements.
Yeah.
And
It's the sound. It's our sound. Yeah.
So I think it's probably both.
Yeah. Janice, remember when we had dinner at your place and John Hendricks and his wife were there, and I asked John, I said, what's your legacy? Are you a songwriter or a singer? And he said, I'm a songwriter. And I wrote songs to fit my voice because no one else was writing songs for my voice. I think of myself as a songwriter. And, in a lot of ways, I would even argue that you guys are going to be known for your arrangements, because to your point, you're taking these arrangements that are so unique and can't be replicated.
That just like going back to what you said about John, I think that really is true. I think he really thought of himself as a writer.
Yeah.
First. Yeah.
Okay. And there was one other question I wanted to ask you is, you guys have worked with a lot of amazing musicians. We went through a lot of the jazz musicians and the pop musicians. That for each of you and collectively, has there been a musician that you've worked with either on stage or in the studio that made you rethink your craft? That you said, I need to sing differently. I need to perform differently.
Wow.
Yeah, for me, I think when we sang with Tony Bennett, because I was a huge fan of Tony Bennett, and when I was in my teens, especially, I mean, my warm up was with Tony Bennett. I'd sing Tony's greatest hits, and I just really copied in a lot of ways the way he sang. But when we were in the studio and I saw him, I learned some things. I had asked him, I said, so how often, I said, how do you warm up? He said, especially during the period of time when he wasn't recording, and he would say, well, I would just sing like 15 minutes a day or something like that. And his process when he was recording, it's like he came in, he wasn't really that warmed up, and then he just kept singing passes, and then all of a sudden it was like magic. And
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and so I've learned that sometimes less is more. Less is more. Light warm-ups and stuff like that. Technique. He has a way of opening his voice when he sings that I kind of include in when I sing. That's me.
Do you remember when Shaka Khan came into the studio
Holy.
with a cigarette and a cappuccino? And then she opened her mouth.
And the walls shook.
And the wall shook. Yeah, that was her warm up. So it's different for every singer.
Cigarettes and coffee. Wow.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
I mean, during the time, some of the greatest singers ever, they'd always be smoking a cigarette because that's what it was, especially in the 40s and the 50s, So, but we don't do that, it's except for the time with you, Janice. Very, very beginning. I love telling this story.
Oh, Jesus.
Everybody was, we were, Tim was always a big smoker. Janice was a smoker.
I was a smoker.
She was a smoker too. But I remember we were doing a rehearsal at the Lamps Club, and I was going out. She said, do me a favor. Can you get me some lox? I said, okay. So I went to a deli and I picked up some lox, and I came back. What she was asking for was a pack of lox. L-A-R-K, lox.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, why I oughta.
I loved larks. I did. They had the charcoal filter that you could play with. Crumbly. It was kind of crumbly.
Is that what it
Now,
was?
when I came in and auditioned, you were smoking, and I thought, oh my God, she smokes. I was like,
I stopped smoking in 1980.
yeah.
Soon after I met you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Tim just kept going for quite a
Yeah,
while.
Tim kept going with those Marlboros. Yep.
Marbles. Yeah. And we smoked weed back then. We would always smoked a lot of weed.
Okay.
Yeah, we smoked that wacky weed.
Okay. So you guys have a show this coming weekend at Rancho Cucamonga nearby here, and then you've got your big New York show June 9th.
Yes. June 9th at Sony Hall. It's our 50th anniversary, and we're going to be with the incredible Diva Jazz Orchestra.
Okay. So take us through the hour before you guys step foot on stage. What do you do that hour before you walk out and face the audience?
Shall I go first?
Go first.
Go first, CB.
Well, Janice and I share a dressing room. Sometimes it's real tight, around one mirror. Sometimes it's 2 or 3. She's got an endless supply of songs on her iPod. I always request Frances Faye. And yeah, just whatever gets us going. If you play some like moody stuff, I go, no, please, you got to get it up to,
Yeah.
So early swing or whatever. Anyway, we play music and we do our makeup, and the eyelashes for me takes a solid hour. So I have to start early.
And whatever the hell it is you do with your hair.
Oh, I
love that.
Yeah.
You're like an alien.
I do alien here. But then we warm up to a original cassette, but it's been put on computer now and on iPod, of a voice teacher that we all studied with way back by the name of Roland Wyatt, that Alan studied with. I think Tim did as well.
Yes, he did.
And he's long gone, but for some reason it's a comfort. It's not a full warm up, but it works for us for how many years we've
It's
done.
a gentle warm up for alto soprano voice.
Yeah.
And, and then maybe we'll do some other things after that, like the sing ring which is a straw kind of warm up,
Right.
and some
Chris,
few other little exercises, some physical movement. Maybe Cheryl will do her pantyhose workout.
yeah,
You
Can you
know,
show
where-
that to us? Okay.
when you got the pantyhose, it's really good because they stretch and then they go back to shape. So
it's like a band workout, but with pantyhose.
I see. I did not know that.
yeah,
Oh,
What
a
do
lot
you
of
know,
stuff goes on you
Chris?
don't know about in our
Yeah.
dressing room.
Mhm. Yeah, I know there's a lot of shenanigans, a lot of stuff that goes on in your room.
Yes.
So Alan, what happens to you the hour before you step foot on stage?
Well, it's the transformation. A lot of it is mental,
Yeah.
of going from, getting into becoming Alan Paul,
Ooh.
becoming
Ooh.
becoming Alan Paul, the performer. So I might meditate a little bit,
Mm.
and then I do a warm up also. I have an app called Sing Friend. That's very, very good. And it allows you to do different scales and stuff like that. But what's the best thing is when Tristan and I actually get to share a dressing room. Trist, what do we do there?
We
This
have
is-
what we like to call the TNA dance party.
Ow!
Funky jams, usually provided by Prince and Prince derivatives, the Gap Band, etc. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, TNA. I was thinking another kind of TNA dance party.
Oh, of course.
Oh.
Where are you, crazy man? Of course, I meant Tristan Allen. Everyone would know that. Tristan Allen dance party. Yeah, just for a similar thing that Cheryl said. Just get you some energy. We all like a lot of music, but there's some energy. There's some music that you like. Ooh, that was kind of deep and dark and introspective, and not the thing you want to hear just before. Ladies and gentlemen, the man. So you want to be in that place. Yeah, but right at the cherry end of just the cherry on top of all of what they said and what Al said. Just getting your mind right, getting ready to go. Vocally, whatever you feel like you need. Sometimes I feel like I need more than other days. If we've really been going, I need a lot more rest, and just kind of from sound check to there, just make sure everything's all working and got the flipper going right. I can sing all those parts that are above my
the
voice.
flipper? Please explain the flipper.
yes.
Well, it's just the place in my voice that it flips from the misnomer of the chest to head voice, and a lot of the parts of that music really are kind of higher than I usually would normally sing. So it's going across the break. And some days it works better than others, more seamlessly. Some days that break is in a different place. So it's almost assessing, okay, where is it today? And where do I have to flip to go to these parts of these songs, etc. But after we're into that, then it's a little funky groove, some James Brown, maybe something like that,
and then maybe some Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons.
and then that's the other one.
Because
Frankie Valli.
it's so amazing because Frankie, thank you, Frankie. I open up my top, my falsetto by singing with Frankie, and it really helps. And we do we do a medley of Four Seasons songs.
And I pick a different harmony part every time.
So we have about 6 minutes left, and I have one question. So you each get 1 minute to answer the question. And one of the things that we keep talking about as we were, formulating messaging for the 50th was the dream. The dream of what is the dream? Tim's dream, the 4-part harmony dream. So what does the dream mean, and how has it evolved for each of you?
Well, I mean, the dream originally was multifaceted. It was to be able to sing and perform this complex music, but also entertain. So be as confident and as prepared in the musicality of what we're doing and the parts, and you're singing the parts and blending, so that we didn't have to think about it too much, and we were able to give our energy outwards, as opposed to what was happening at the time, which was it's more of an introspective, like singer-songwriter groove. That was what was happening when we were coming up. But we wanted to push the energy outward and perform. And we also wanted to tour all over the world. We wanted to be the best vocal group in the world,
Well, you
whatever
were.
that means.
Yeah.
And for me, I think we've achieved a lot of our dreams. I really do.
Alan?
I agree with that. It was always, I remember people would ask, well, let's be the greatest vocal group in the world in our time. Of course, we were just saying that, but, we wanted to, we had very specific steps to get there, we knew we had to get a record deal. That was, foremost, and wanted to, like Janice said, sing this stuff, perform this stuff, and make records and get on the radio.
Okay.
And
Cheryl?
those were our goals, and then, so that's what we did.
Cheryl, how did you interpret the dream?
Wow. Well, mine was a little different because I came into an existing, band, basically. So in doing that, I'm trying to think back in terms of what I brought to the group and what meant a lot to me, what meant the most to me to, what is my contribution? It better be huge because this is the group. This is the vocal group. So learning this incredibly intense music, this complicated vocalese, getting on stage and doing it. I think for me, and there was one moment when we were working on vocalese, we were touring these little clubs and John would be backstage giving us notes about the music, and what to change, what to do. And once he said, Cheryl, you just can't dance and sing Benny Bailey. And I went, oh, okay. So for me, it's an inner joy. It's fun. I like to bring fun to it. When that stops, it's when it's no longer fun. And sometimes you have to force it, because this music is intense, like I said. So for me, it's having a ball and relaying that to a room full of people that also want to have a great time with us and love us, and we love them. So it's an emotional thing for me.
Great. Trist?
Well, also coming into something that already existed, that feels like that was their dream, was to do what they did. Like, it's amazing to me to have heard those stories. Like, yep, Tim wanted to do this and this and this. And I'm thinking, well, that's exactly what you guys did. So that's pretty cool to do all the different kinds of music and bringing harmony to all of it, all the different styles. Keeps the audience interested, except for that one time in Europe when you changed on them. But they eventually, of course, went with you. The artist's dilemma, like, we want to keep doing what they love, but we got to keep changing. So it's been great to just hear those stories and learn that. And for me, just not getting in the way of the dream. Yep. Just coming along for the ride and helping it keep going and do all the different styles and types of music and doing them the best we can while being an entertaining show where people come in and they leave changed some way, right? They come and have an experience, and you moved them in whatever direction you moved them. You still moved them, and that was a powerful thing. And I think the group does that every show.
Yeah, another goal that I think we achieved is not being boxed in to one style of music, to really explore anything that captured our fancies, our musical fancy, and whether it was Western swing or pop, like out and out pop music, or bebop, or doo wop, we just followed it and added harmony to it.
Excellent. Well, we are exactly on time. So we don't have any time for more other questions. And a reminder, the transfer is going to be at Sony Hall in New York, Rancho Cucamonga this coming weekend, Phoenix as well. And then I will see them at the Disney Hall show in Los Angeles in December. But of course, I see Cheryl nearly every other day when we meet for coffee in Palm Springs. So, okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
And
Gary.
Thank you,
Thank
Gary.
you so much.
Okay, I'll talk to you
Thank
guys
you,
later.
Gail.
Oh, wait, Gail's coming back on, I think she said.
Yes.
Gail, you coming back on?